and welcome to our thrifty and frugal home here in Brittany in northwest France. My name is Jane and I live with my husband Michael, and he's the nice guy behind the camera today. Welcome to our mid-week money chats, and these are the chats where we talk about all things thrifty, frugal, budgeting and money saving. This week we are going to be answering the question of how do we balance living on a budget with living. The first part of balancing the two, of living on a budget and living in general, has to be the point where I talk to you about us budgeting. Now, we have a written budget. There's plenty of links below that we will put down below of how we actually write our budget and links to how we actually create our sinking funds. So we've got a written budget. Now, some people might think that might be a bit prescriptive or not for them, but it works for us. I need to take you back in time because at one stage in our life, many years ago, we were £45,000 in personal debt. And to get out of that, we wrote ourselves an emergency budget, a bare bones budget, if you will. And on that bare bones budget, we made sure that all our needs were met. Our housing needs were met, our insurance needs were met, our food was paid for, our utilities and bills were paid for, our car was kept on the road. But other than that, for that period of time, that was what was on our budget. We were not at that time, after we'd started our emergency fund, we weren't putting anything more into savings at that stage. So at that time, we literally had a bare bones budget, which we used to pay off debt. There will also be a link below to our video of how we paid off that debt in 2 years. So my first point is about having some perspective. In all of that time, and that might be the time you're going through right now, it might feel like a really bumpy ride, and all you can do is just hang on for dear life because it's an emergency budget. But it's not permanent. It's not forever. And we got through that by having perspective, and we tracked it and we could see that debt coming down. And because of that, it gave us the perspective that it wasn't forever, that it was going. And we were seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So my first point is how to balance budgeting with living is have some perspective. If all your bills are paid, you can kind of relax a little bit because you're already going in the right direction. Things are okay. Don't sweat over what you can't have right now, because at that moment in time, even if you are living on an emergency budget or a bare bones budget, you're okay. All your needs are met. Now, we live on a budget all the time, every month. Even though we're debt and mortgage free, we're now looking forward. And just as once upon a time we were tracking debts coming down, we're now tracking savings going up. Whether that's our sinking funds to pay for things like car repairs, Christmas, and you can see I'm visualizing it here. You fill up a fund, you bring it down, you fill it up again. So, but we were always looking forward. And that's the balance, isn't it? How do you balance budgeting with living? Because living doesn't just happen today. It isn't just about what you want today. We're not children. We're not stamping our feet, bemoaning the fact that we can't have this or that today. We're adults, and we know we've got to save to have it tomorrow, or next month, or next year, or in 3 years. So, and this is a really important thing for well-being. People who have a good sense of well-being and are caring for themselves and they're looking after themselves always give themselves something to look forward to. And budgeting really helps with that. Budgeting is where you can see and you have, I would say, give yourself a visual. Give yourself something where you are tracking your spending. We do it in our budget book, but we can see the savings are building. We log on to our bank account, we can see the savings are building. We're getting closer and closer to those financial goals. So, sum that up then of how do you balance budgeting with living is give yourself a forward plan. Know where you're going with that budget. Give yourself a visual aid if you need to. Ours, it's a car. We know every time we come to a sort of €500 chunk that we can tick that off the list. We're getting there. It doesn't happen overnight. You can't save up for the big things overnight. Big things could be a college fund, a wedding, your house deposit. It could be your son and daughter's wedding that you may want to save for in the future. It could be your retirement. None of those things happen overnight, but they are good things to look forward to. Give yourself something to look forward to. My third point, and this is a bit of advice. I don't normally give advice, but this is some advice, and that would be to anybody who is living on a budget and trying to balance that with living in general, is to enjoy what you have. So what I mean by that is kind of enjoy the simple things. Because if you are saving, you may not have within your budget to do some of the things that you might have done irresponsibly, or when you weren't budgeting, or that other people might do, that they might be using their credit card to do. But you're taking a different view of this now. So enjoy doing those things. And I bring this back to Mike and I. And we make a point once a week of not eating in the kitchen, but eating at our dining table, setting the table, putting our nicest cutlery out, our nicest china out, our best glasses out, really making us a real sort of date night of it and having something lovely for supper on that night. We make a point every week of going to explore somewhere, going to look for somewhere locally, not too far away, affordably, making the most of that. How often do we go further afield and ignore the lovely things that are on our doorstep? We remembered our time of living in Plymouth. We were really skint back then when we lived in Plymouth, but we had local parks, we could go to the Hoe, we would use the library far more than we did later on, but we really did make the most of the simple things around us. So I would suggest, I don't often give advice, but that would be a piece of advice that I would give, is if you are trying to balance living on a budget with living, is enjoy what you have. On to my fourth point. Now, just as I don't normally share advice, I don't normally share opinions. I'm going to break that rule as well, and I am going to share an opinion. And it is my opinion that money is a means to an end. It's not the end, it's not the purpose, it's not the reason, it's not why we get up in the morning, it's not what we strive for, it's not the most important thing. Money is a means to an end. Money is what we need to buy what we need and to buy what we want. So the striving for money isn't important. Agree with that or disagree with that, as you will. And of course, everybody has their own opinion. What I'm saying for this is about balancing living with budgeting, is if you want to get more living than budgeting, you've got to realise that money has a means to an end. And we have now made the decision in our lives to work as much as we need to, and that's it. Because we have decided to balance living with budgeting. And the more you enjoy the simple things in life, the more you enjoy having perspective that you actually have a good life and you have enough, the less you strive for money. Now that's an opinion, and I accept the fact that you may or may not agree with me, and that is okay. You might get up in every morning that you live and breathe to earn as much money as possible, and that's okay. That's your thing. That's okay. I'm not criticising those people for whom build wealth and building more wealth and having a bigger house is their thing. I'm not criticising those people. But it is my opinion that money is a means to an end. Money in itself is not the end. And that's a great peace of mind thing with balancing budgeting with living. Have enough, enjoy it, and live your life. My fifth and final point is a bit different because it's a challenge. And we've challenged ourselves to do this for years and years and years. And you may like to take up this challenge. And my challenge is this. I challenge you to spend time with your family, your loved ones, and your friends, doing things that are fun and enjoyable that cost no money at all. I'm going to share something with you from Mike and I's life, from the time that before we were budgeting, but we were just poor. And we made the conscious decision 20-something years ago that Mike and I would not give each other gifts. So I don't give him a birthday present, he doesn't give me a birthday present, I don't buy him a Christmas present, we don't buy each other Valentine's Day presents, nothing. We do not buy each other's gifts. What we are is gift to each other. And what we do is spend as much time together as we possibly can. And when we were working and we would spend hours away from our homes and hours away from each other, we used to really make sure that we gave each other our time. So now we are living on a budget and we have a lower than average income and that we are saving, which means we're having to live on a lower than average income to meet those savings needs. We make sure that we take time for self-care. So a day a week, we make sure that we do as little as possible, whether it's sitting in the garden, reading books, or going for walks, or going to look and see new places. But we don't have money to do these things. But what we have is the luxury of wonderful time, and we spend it together. The other thing that we do, like we said earlier, is we always normally eat in the kitchen, but one night a week we make a point of laying the dining table and really turning it into some kind of a date night. We make sure when the weather is good that we pack a picnic and we go off for the day, and we go off somewhere, even if it's a car picnic, even if it's just a supermarket car park picnic because we've popped in there. We just make sure that we challenge ourselves to do things that don't cost any money at all, because it would be very easy to feel like, oh, woe is me, I don't have any money for doing the fun things in life. But we challenge ourselves and we achieve it. We do achieve it. We go to new places and we see good things, and we always try to do that. So, what about you? Could you challenge yourself with your family, with your friends, with your loved ones to do something and do things on a regular basis that cost no money at all? Now, chatting on about balancing being on a budget with living brings me back to point one about perspective. And what I do whenever I start feeling a bit down, or a bit like life is getting me down, or life is just a treadmill, any of those things, I ask myself this question: is this a first world problem? Am I worrying about things that are really quite trivial. Like, is my kitchen good enough? Is my bathroom good enough? Are the clothes I'm wearing good enough? Am I doing things that are interesting enough? I ask myself that. Is this a first world problem? And usually it is. And that brings me back to perspective. And having that perspective really puts my life into that perspective that actually I'm never cold, I'm never hungry, I have enough, I have a home, I have a job, I'm doing well, I'm doing well. And on reflection, I think I balance being on a budget with living just fine, just fine. Thank you so much for sitting down and having this midweek money chat with us. Thank you so much to everybody who gives it a like. Big thank you to everyone who's pressed that subscribe button. It really does help us. Thank you very much. Thank you most of all to everyone who leaves a comment. I love hearing from you. I love those people who share their stories with us. It's so giving. It's so generous of you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.